Hello, my friends. I'm so excited. I am in such a creative burst of combination of creativity and, of course, the eye hand thing that happens when you do art, and then this spiritual push to transform my own inner life of my Gene Keys chart into beautiful fairy tale oracle cards. So this is actually a continuation of a video I did last week. Last week I did two videos about oracle cards. The first one was introducing all the decks that I did between 2018 and 2023. And then the second video I made was showing you all of the life key animals from the dream arc that are in my own chart. And I explained to you why I chose what I chose. And I do need to say here that all of these images have been generated by AI. I am using a program called Bazart, and I am using the AI component, which is absolutely new to me and never done it before, and I am loving it from a single-use, childlike game. I will never sell these as my own. I do not know exactly where I stand on AI as art. It is only for play and for my own personal use and my own personal transformation. And so let's put all the moralistic stuff about AI aside. This is just a game to me, and a spiritual game. Yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to show you now, because since I made that video, which is quite a bit ago, I have now made cards for all of my fear keys, and I've made cards for all of my vision keys, and I have made cards for the pathways, and I just have to show them to you. Now, I showed you all of the life keys, which are the mammals. I have all the images now here on my iPad, which is where I do this. I have an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil, and I will be inserting them into this video as I edit. So what I'm going to do is just go in order through these cards. There's another part of this process because I've decided I want to print them professionally. I use the site makeplayingcards.com for this, and they've always done a beautiful job. So I've had to transform this particular image into a larger card to fit into the same size cards I have used since 2018. When we get these cards printed, I need to use a template because the commercial printer, when they print it, they put the image on, but then they cut the card. So if you notice on this, there are different lines. There's a line for the cut line. There is then a line for the bleed area. That means that you don't want anything important in that bleed area, because what if the cutting machine was off by a millimeter? It might get into something important. So I always to be able to create these cards, I need to use this template. And then what I ended up doing, I didn't start the cards on the template, which was possibly a mistake, but we'll call it a happy mistake because I've learned to live with it. I was originally actually limited because my program only does AI in a square. It doesn't do AI in a rectangle. And cards I like to have as rectangles. So I made I put the square onto a rectangle, as you see in most of these images. However, the card itself that I like, the size that I like to use as oracle cards, is an even bigger rectangle with a lot more room on the top and the bottom. So, especially to stay in those lines, right? So I had to then take that image and put it into the rectangle, add more of the background, and then I just added new words, more words to it to fill in the space. And it's worked really well, actually. There's a nice big spaciousness to this, and yet it gives me a lot of information, and I'm able to put in what the pathways mean and where they go, what, dilemmas in the fear keys. It's given me space to add more to the card, which is helpful for my own personal growth. So I've been very happy with that. And let me just show you the cards now. So here we go. The first one is the fear of ease, and it's a lizard. And the fear of ease, laying on pillows, eating bonbons is kind of like the idea behind this one. Just taking your time, just being easy, right? So that's our lizard. Then the mammal key is this bear, which I've shown you and told you about. And then the vision key is an emu, and it's the vision of grounded majesty. Now, he is, I think, the only bird key that I have dressed up in something. But there is I just really wanted to use that majestic king attitude along with this, and there's that grounded castle in the background, right? Just love his vibe. I decided to do the pathways. This next pathway goes between the life's work and the evolution, and it is the pathway of challenge. And it is our biggest challenge in this lifetime is to get this connection between our life's work and our evolution. We come into this world in our life's work, but our job is to move into our evolution. And so this pathway of challenge is incredibly important, and it is not easy. Therefore, windy up a rocky path. We get to the evolution, and here is my fear key, the fear of missing out. And I had to put food in here. What can I say? I have disordered eating, so food was very important. And here this fly is trapped inside this glass bubble with eating this cake, thinking, he'd be missing out if he wasn't eating the cake. Whereas there's all this beauty all around him if he weren't so focused on that superficial sugar high, And that's, of course, that's where I'm bringing in my own stuff into the keys. The fly for someone else might look very, very different. I mean, the fear of missing out is basically living life at a superficial level. So as you can see, I have added to the fear of missing out, I have added its dilemma, which is self-awareness, which is truly the lack of self-awareness. The fly is a laugher, and its partners are the skunk and the crane. So here is the skunk real quick. And then here is the crane, and the crane is a vision of mythical presence, and I just loved adding the prayer flags to this one to add that color, this magnificent, the presence, Then there we have another pathway, because we go now into our radiance, and the pathway is the pathway of breakthrough. And I thought I really needed something of a darkish forest with light at the end, with this breakthrough light. And so that's my favorite of those. For each one of these, I put in a certain phrase in the AI generator, and then it comes up with 4 choices. And if I repeat it over and over again, I get 4 more choices and 4 more choices, etc. And I can change the wording a little, like add the sun high in the sky, or, that kind of thing. And it comes up with all these different choices. And so at the end, I have I save the ones I like, and then I go through it again to really refine which one is the perfect one for that goes with the background. As you notice, all of these 20 have this pale yellow background, and this is the one that went the best with it because it is moving from the pathway is moving from the evolution into the radiance. And here's the radiance fear key, the fear of meeting boundaries, brick wall. So yeah, the wasp was, I didn't even have to go beyond the very first time I put in a wasp at a brick wall, and I got 4 choices. I picked 2 of them, and I picked this one from the 2. That was one of the easiest ones I've ever done. So here's the fear of meeting boundaries, and on the larger card I do have the dilemma, which is excess. And the dilemma is excess because the actual shadow for this gene key is exhaustion. So you need boundaries so that you don't become exhausted. Then the life key, which we went through in the last video, is the cat. And then the robin is the vision key, and the vision of the sacred flame. And I used the robin from the book The Secret Garden. So what I put in, because this is a symbolism from my childhood, so I put in robin on a wall covered with ivy, because the robin in The Secret Garden is the one who shows the heroine of the story the doorway to the secret garden. So to me, that's just got so much meaning. The pathway, of course, stability goes from the radiance down to the purpose. And as you see, I've continued with that green background and just columns. I just thought of columns as this stability. You really having stability, and what is more stable in those arched columns. So yeah, I like that one a lot. Then we move into the purpose key. Now the purpose key has 2 meanings. It has the purpose in the activation sequence, which is where I have the 3 cards. So the fear key is a jellyfish, and the jellyfish is the fear of asking for support. And yeah, why did I stick him in a kitchen? Well, for one thing, the dog is in the kitchen. But for another thing, this is a place where I am so inept preparing food and even understanding why we have food preparation for family gatherings. And so, and yet, if I was trapped in a kitchen, I would not want to ask for support. So, to me, it just shows this unwillingness to ask for support. And it's a lone jellyfish. There's the dog, which I showed you in the last video. And then the vision of communal tenderness is the sparrow. And of course, it had to be a flock. Because, well, for one thing, you very rarely see just one sparrow. They come in flocks there. And, yeah, the beautiful little flowers around it. Then we move, then I have my second dog. And it's because the dog, the purpose is also in the Venus sequence. And so the purpose for my relationships is this key of 37, which is this cheerful equanimity. But because it's the purpose of a relationship, I felt I needed to have a relationship in it. So I made a second card for this, for the Venus sequence dog, so that I know when I'm using it as an oracle, if I get this one, it's talking about the role of this card in relationships. Then the pathway of Dharma. And Haley Curtis actually mentioned that whenever she thinks of the pathway of Dharma, she thinks of the Akashic records. So this enormous otherworldly library that has all of our Dharma spread out in records all around us. So this is the card that I found for the pathway of Dharma. Yeah. I love the idea of the Akashic records. And then we move into, so the pathway of Dharma goes from this purpose key up to our attraction sphere. And my fear key in the attraction sphere are ants. And it's the fear of sacrifice. And I think the idea behind this was a very hard one, to have the image actually give me any kind of clue as to what it means. So I just left it the way it is. I have the dilemma in there on the other card, and it's pretty much the fear of sacrifice being the fear of sacrificing the ego to the whole, really, and yet what we learn when we come to the gift key or the life key is that it's synergistic, which means that you may be a part of the whole, but you are a unique part of the whole. Each of these, bison are in their own outfits. They're each reading different books. Some of them have pants on, some don't. So, yeah. Then we move into the vision of communion of all beings, this beautiful ibis. And I just couldn't do any better. This was one of the very first ones that I came up with a beautiful glowing orb behind. It could be the moon, it could be the sun. So, yeah, communion. Love it. Then we go into the pathway of karma. So karma is taking our dharma and making it into human lessons for us. So we have this dharma that we've built up, and then we come into karma, and karma is all of the relationships that we have that show us how to move through these issues of our dharma. And I just thought of all these gifts that people give us in a relationship. And the gifts, yes, in this picture, seem all celebratory, but sometimes the gifts are horrendous. Sometimes the gifts are your husband dying. Sometimes the gifts are your son breaks his arm, or you don't know what the gift is going to be. But they're all there on the side of the path waiting for you to take the challenge and open them. And, the balloons and then the prayer flags. Yeah. So, and it's a little difficult in the Venus sequence to do these pathways because the Venus sequence is all about relationship. And yet I've determined not to put any humans into this deck. So I had to sort of indicate humans through other ways. So this is shown by gifts. I mean, those gifts were given by humans, right? Which is really what happens in a relationship. My husband is gifting me his experience of going through cancer treatment. And it's my job to unwrap that gift and to find equilibrium beneath it and equanimity, Which leads me to the next key, which is my IQ, and it's the fear of being overwhelmed. And I had such an interesting time with this one because every time I said, would you show me an overwhelmed spider, it just showed me this spider in a web. And I just wanted more for that. So for some reason I thought, let's put the word mushroom in. And I found the most delightful little illustrations of spiders under mushrooms. Now, this app sometimes will give multiple limbs or distorted limbs. It just sort of gets carried away with itself. So I had to make sure that the spider that I chose had the right number of limbs. And I think he does. He might have an extra one. It's kind of hard to tell, but that's okay. And then the raccoon is the mammal, which I talked about in the last video. And then the bird is the golden oriole. And I believe that Richard chose this bird because of its beautiful voice. And of course, I can't exactly show that in a card that the golden oriole has a beautiful voice, but its harmony is the acidic state for this. And so I just, I added a piano to it, and I'm loving it. It's beautiful, that beautiful yellow with that turquoise blue background. Then we move into the next pathway, and this is the pathway between the IQ and the EQ. So the IQ is the intelligence quotient. The EQ is the emotional quotient, and it is basically a pathway of balance. This is where you balance the intelligence and the emotions. And so I thought a river for the emotions, and then of course the pathway itself, and they are together, they are balanced. They are moving. Sometimes they're a little bit apart, sometimes they're a little closer together, and it's, indicating the whole balance there. And if you notice, this is not unlike the pathway of challenge, where you've got that rockiness. And this is actually a pathway of challenge. This is the pathway of challenge within the Venus sequence. So I wanted that echo as well. And this moves then into the EQ. And the 36 is the fear of vulnerability, and the salamander. And this was another one that was very easy. I knew I wanted him red and hiding under a leaf. And this is the one that came out the most vulnerable looking. And then you've seen the squirrels in the last one, and why I chose the apothecary. And then the nuthatch is the bird. And this nuthatch, the vision of worldly compassion, the idea between both the squirrel and the nuthatch is that they're able to go up and down as humans do, up into the spiritual realms and down onto the mundane earth. And I thought that the little angle of this bird was lovely here to indicate that. The next pathway is the pathway of love. This one was one that took a little time to refine what I wanted, because this is also a pathway of breakthrough. We've been through the pathway of challenge. Now we're into a pathway of breakthrough. I needed the sun in there, like I had in my previous pathway of breakthrough. So the sun needed to be shining. And then I wanted water, because it's coming out of the emotions. And then I also wanted, it had to have a pathway. And I thought, a bridge. I, for some reason, wanted a bridge. And I wanted a fruit tree. So trying to get just the right combination of those from an AI generator, just giving one sentence it took a lot. I probably had 30, 40 different ones to choose from. And this is the one that finally just hit the right note for me. So this is the pathway of love, and it has a shadow, as does the pathway of intellect. And I've put the shadows onto the actual cards. The shadow of isolation here, and it's the shadow of defense in the other card. The pathway of love goes from the emotional quotient, the EQ, to the spiritual quotient, the SQ. So the SQ, that's the heart of your chart. The SQ is this heart of your chart, and I have gene key 62 there. And so the fear of being exposed is the rattlesnake, and the actual shadow of this is intellect. So I just absolutely love the mortarboard on the snake, surrounded by books, thinking that he's all that because he has all these smarts. The animal is that beautiful lynx, which I showed you in the other video. And then the vision key is the beautiful woodpecker. And, I had to put some kind of ceremonial garb on this woodpecker because he is a shaman, right? So I did that. Then the pathway that happens between the SQ and the core wound is the pathway of realization. And within the text of the pathway of realization, Richard Rudd talks about it being your own inner lighthouse. So I absolutely had to use a lighthouse. And I haven't done anything in the dark before in this deck, so I put the lighthouse, which of course is meant to be lit in the dark, so I put it in a nighttime landscape. And I just love this pathway. Just a beautiful representation. So now we're in the core wound, and this is another one of those keys that has two roles. So it's right now it's in the Venus sequence, but it also is part of the Pearl sequence. The fear key is the fear of passion, the actual dilemma, which I have really, really learned about. The dilemma for this shadow of dishonor in Gene Key 22, this fear of passion, the shadow is accountability. And so I dressed my piranha, which is the fear animal for this, as an accountant. And yeah, accountability. Then we have the deer, which I talked about in the last video. And then we have the vision key, which is a swan. And because this has two roles, this is the second deer. This is the Gene Key 22. This is the vocation now, where you take all that you have learned from delving into your core wound and you bring it out into the world. So the deer is out in the village, no longer in the back garden, but out in the village. Then it moves to the pathway of initiative, where this I am coming out into the world with this fire in my heart, this core fire in my heart, bringing this message to the world of being accountable to your emotions. That's my core wound, right? And so I just had to have fire in this one. So moving in towards the temple and all this fire beside me. And this moves from the vocation. Now we are in the Pearl sequence. It moves from the vocation to the culture key. And the culture key is the same key I have for my radiance. It's Gene Key 40. And so I'm not going to show you the fear key and the vision key. I've already showed them. I'm not doing 2 cards for them, but I did 2 cards for the cat. This is the cat out in the world. Instead of at home writing its memoirs, it's out in the world. And so, yeah, I love his jaunty scarf. So from the culture, which this is the Pearl sequence, so it's about your prosperity in the outer world. And so this culture key is all about your people. The next pathway is the pathway of growth. And this goes from your culture, where you have found your fractal of people, to your brand, which is your life's work revisioned. And so this is the pathway of growth. And so I showed growth in the village, all these shops, well-tended shops. Now, growth can be unchecked, but if it is balanced, it is beautiful, like this image where everyone looks prosperous, right? Pathway of growth. And then I did another card for my brand, even though she is a queen bear. To me, the brand is as it's you in your life's work, as if you were the sun, just radiating light. And so I had to have the sun behind this beautiful queen bear, And then the final pathway is the pathway of service. And this is this goes between the brand and the vocation. And it is how you serve the world. How are you going to use your gifts to serve the world? And I just thought of a red carpet. Here we are coming out in our brand with the sun shining behind us, with this coming down this beautiful staircase, giving to the world our gifts, right? Yeah. So I love this pathway, this beautiful magnificence. And then the in-between, it has made a triangle here in the Pearl sequence, right? So we have the vocation, we have the culture, we have the brand, and they're all connected by pathways. But in the very middle, which is also connected to it all, is the Pearl. And that's almost like our reward for finishing our golden path. This is our essence. This is our reward. This is how we come across. This is what we give to the world as well, you know. And the mine happens to be gene key 6, and the squid. And the squid is the fear of conflict. And so here is this squid, very heavily armed. You know, we are dealing with a fairy tale world, remember? So yeah, there is armor. I love this squid. That blue, blue and a little bit of that orangey red. Yum, yum, yum. And then the animal was that fun hedgehog with his little pointed sword, and which I talked about. And then the bird, the vision of ineffable peace, and peace has come to this kingdom. That's actually the whole gene key. That's my whole profile. Now, each of these cards now are going to be printed professionally. And so they need a back to it. So here is the back I've chosen. It's the only human that's in the whole deck. And it's me, of course, going to my cottage with my cat, because the cat is my kin animal. Yeah, so I cannot wait to get these all done and then printed. However, 2 nights ago, of course, it's the full moon in Aries, all this creative fire energy going. And I just thought, I haven't done the lines. What am I going to do for the lines? So that's the next project, because each one of these keys has a line to it. And some of these keys have different meanings for the lines. So for instance, the line in the brand is a little different than the line in the life's work, even though for me they're both 6. So I might have 2 bears again, 2 more bears. And because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that mammal, the life key, because in truth, all of this work, all of this inner work that we're doing is to help us to give our gifts to the world. And the gifts are that mammal key, the mammals. So that's why I'm going to have so many mammals. So, for instance, I was thinking in my life's work as a line 6, word is teacher. You know, so now I'm going to experiment. What does a fairy tale bear look like at a blackboard? Or I don't know what's going, or, you know, reading a book to cubs, you know. And then, you know, go from there. See what each one of these animals is going to do with each one of the keywords for the lines, you know, the essence of those lines. Thank you for coming along for this. And I really appreciate it. You being excited with me. I know this is a very, very specific deck, but I hope it inspires you to do something creative for yourself as you explore your own gene keys. Oh, please, it doesn't have to be artwork that you do. Express yourself creatively. Bring in that inner child, that SQ energy, and just play. You know, you go for it. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.